All right, we're going to look at my Strava mapping project. This is a project that allowed me to learn more about GIS mapping and integrating with Google Maps API. So the project is a Strava activity mapping tool that integrates with the Strava API to visualize running, cycling, and other activity data on a Google Map. The purpose of this project is to enhance data visualization for athletes by allowing them to view their recent activities, starred segments, and time-based activity history in an interactive way. The software fetches Strava activity data using an authenticated API request and displays it on a Google map. Each activity or segment is represented by a polyline, and clicking on it reveals detailed statistics such as distance, elevation gain, and time. So how to use, when the server's running, you just go to the URL, you log in with Strava, and authenticate with Strava. You'll then select an option from view last 20 activities, starred segments, or activities for a specified date range. You'll then be able to view them on the map and click on each one for more details. The development environment was VS Code. I used Node.js, Google Maps API, Strava API, EJS, Axios, and JavaScript on the client side. Programming languages and libraries. The backend was JavaScript with Node.js and Express. Front end was JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and EJS. I used the Google Maps API and the Strava API, and then I used the Axios API handler for making HTTP requests to Strava, and then I used .env for managing environment variables. Here's some useful links that I had. Strava API documentation, Google Maps documentation, the Node.js documentation, as well as Express guide. Some things I'd like to improve in the future. I'd like to make the UI look a lot better. I'd like to have persistent logins and display more data metrics, such as the elevation profile for an activity, speed analysis, things like that. Performance optimization, I'd like to cache some of the frequently used data and to help reduce the API calls that are being used. And then make sure it's mobile compatible. I just need to design the front end to be more responsive to different sized screens, and then to actually deploy it to cloud so that it's a service that the public can use, because right now it has to be the run on local. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the code. We'll just do a quick look at it. So look at the server first. So the server first imports dependencies. It sets up the app to use the public static files, URL encoding, JSON. It sets the view engine to EJS. This allows us to dynamically render HTML templates. Loads in our env variables. It reroutes the default URL to the Strava URL, and then it tells it to use the router. So we'll go ahead and look at the routes. So the routes, we just have this one that if Strava data is being stored, it'll then just pass certain data into the sorry, I can't think of the word, into the view. So we have that. Then we have the login URL, which redirects the user to Strava to use their OAuth, which then redirects us to the callback page. So the callback page will get a code from Strava, which is the authorization code. If we receive a code, then we'll continue forward and we'll have to exchange that code for an access token. So we'll do a post request to the Strava endpoint. We'll give them the client ID, client secrets, our access code, and then what type of authorization we're looking for, which is the authorization code. We'll then store that response in our Strava data and then reroute them back to this home page, which now that they're logged in, because there's Strava data, this all gets passed into our front end. From there, we have a couple other routes. This is the route to fetch the last 20 activities, fetch start activities, which is a little bit more complicated because we had to do a request to get their start segments, but then we have to do a specific API call for each of the start segments to get a detailed view of them so that we can actually map the segments. From there, we have this one that just gets the activities from a specified time range. The Strava API uses Unix timestamps, so we had to just convert the date to seconds essentially. From there, we did the API call. We got just the top 50 from that time period. I could up it, but I just don't want to overload the number of requests I can do. They limit you to, I think it's 100 every 15 minutes or something on Strava. So we just want to make sure we're not hitting it too crazy. And then we have this route. It's not being used anywhere, but it was just a route that I had set up in case I needed to access the Strava data somewhere on the front end with the client-side JavaScript. So it just returns the Strava data if it exists. But we'll probably disable this route because it's just not being used. From there, we have the front side, the client side JavaScript, which here, this is the important part for this assignment, but for this project, I mean. So this initializes the Google map and it centers it at the provided latitude and longitude. And I just based that off of the last segment or the last activity in the array of activities or segments. So I just passed in that latitude and longitude, centered the map there. From there, the user can explore and find all their other activities, but that just made it easier for me. From there, we have a function to create each polyline. So a polyline is essentially an encoded format of latitude and longitude GPS data. It just makes it easier to pass back and forth between API and clients and things. So we have to decode that data so that we can actually draw it on the map. So we're going to decode it, then we're going to create that polyline with the data. Then we're going to create the marker. So this marker gets created at the midpoint of our polyline. We'll create our info window, and we're going to add some event listeners so that when the polyline is clicked, it opens the marker and the info window. And then from there, we'll click on the map and we can close all of those again. Then we have some just functions to process the data that we receive from the server. So this one goes through the data. It goes through each one and populates it on the map. This one is our login button. This one adds an event listener to our dropdown. And then this one helps us determine which API endpoint to fetch data from. So this one uses our selected value in the dropdown to then determine which endpoint needs to get selected. Then we have one final function to reset our input so that the form can get reused. So we'll go ahead and start this up. So we'll open up, we'll go to localhost. All right, so as you see, we got redirected to the Strava. We're gonna get logged in. So we're just gonna authorize this, hit authorize. Now we're back here on our home page, and we'll just start with the last 20 activities, show activities. So as we see, we can see a bunch of these lines here. There's some more of them down here. So we'll go ahead and just click on one of these, like this one right here. This was just afternoon run, creative name. Took place on February 1st, 11.86 miles in 87.3 minutes. We have some activities in here, so we'll click on this one. Morning run for 127. It was 6.38 miles, 53 minutes. There's one over here. That one was from today, 2/4, 8.28 miles, 66 minutes. All right, so now we'll go ahead and look at our activities from a specified time period. So we'll go all the way back to, let's go with January 2020. go January 1st, 2020. On January 31st. So we'll hit show activities. All right, so we've got some here in Salt Lake. So we'll click on those. Got this one, morning run, 8 miles. This one right here, keeping it nice and easy, 6 miles. Some up here in the mountains we can look at. So it's probably some sort of skiing. Yeah, some skiing at Solitude. All right, let's see if there's any other ones that we can see on the map. All right, we got some down here in Arizona. So we'll look at this one. Oh, this is a 100-mile race I did. This one. Okay, so this was a cat pass loop, so it's 10 miles. Looks like I just went around this mountain over here, which is pretty cool. All right, we'll go ahead and look at our starred segments now. So let's show activities. It's going to reset the map to bring us back over here. We can see this one is called the Nasty. It's 2.79 miles, total elevation gain of 168.7 feet. We'll look at this one. It's a hill climb. Look at this one. Southbound gate to gate. So it's just going on this trail, southbound. So we can see the arrow here pointing. We know it goes down south. And yeah, that's the project. That's everything about it.